Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the show tonight. I'm David McQuell. It's wonderful to be here today. Yesterday, I did one of those funny things that I did at the beginning when I began streaming. It was really a crazy time, excuse my language. And you come on air sometimes and forget that your camera is not connected, or your microphone is not connected, or it's not activated. It was really strange, and I came on air yesterday and totally forgot to stream. So I was busy enjoying my show, and when I just finished, I realized, hey, I didn't turn on the streaming. Then I realized I even didn't stream at all. And I was in the studios for 1 hour doing a great job, but unfortunately I was doing a great job to myself alone. So today we're back, and I'm glad that I'm very sorry if you missed us yesterday, but I'm really glad to be back here today, having a great time with you. So I'll be right back.
Hello everyone, this is Global Impact with David McQuell, your host. Isaiah chapter 2 verses 1 to 5 says that a time is coming when the church will rise in authority and influence and dominate the earth. And many nations will come and say, teach us the ways of the Lord. Global Impact is a show that inspires you as a Christian to rise up through the values of the kingdom of God and shine as light wherever you may be. We believe that missions is no longer limited to some isolated, unreached community in some dark continent. The church should reach out to all aspects of life, including politics, business, science and research, the media and diplomacy, and every aspect of human life. Join us on Global Impact, Monday through Friday, at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 6 p.m. GMT. Global Impact is broadcast on tecntv.com. Join us.
All right, so welcome back to the show. This is David McQuell again, coming to you on Global Impact. I'm the host for tonight, as usual, bringing you great content. And this week we have decided to go around the world in 5 days, look at what's going on around the world. And as I said yesterday, basically, we will be focusing on my favorite news channels, update channels, current channels, on Telegram. The first one is Amir Tsarfati. He is a Jewish, Messianic Jewish Christian brother, but really well informed, and has been keeping hundreds of thousands of people well informed. In fact, millions of people well informed about what's going on, not just in the Middle East, but around the world. He has an extremely wonderful access to current informations. Just not just following the mainstream media, which we all know is corrupt and perverted and editorialized. So Amir Tsarfati if you can, really on Telegram. If you're on Telegram, you can look for his channel and subscribe to his channel. It's incredibly great. And also TCN TV, we partner with NTD. NTD is the sister a company of Epoch Times. If you know Epoch Times, it is the most reputable newspaper right now. And so these are the true sources of information that we focus on Global Impact, and we will be looking at what's going on in the world today, especially the war going on in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, which is basically a proxy war. And it's not really about Ukraine and Russia only. It is about the battle between Russia and the West. So we will be looking at some of the updates. And also, yesterday we saw a very funny story. The U.S. Secretary of State, Mr. Blinken, was threatening, in fact, he was sanctioning the Sudanese police for being even-handed on protesters. And that's, I still remember and I laugh. That's the most hilarious news, right? I mean, look at what they have done to American protesters. Lock them down in solitary confinement. People who just by being around the Capitol, not even entering inside Capitol Hill, but just being around Capitol, some of them being in Washington, D.C. that day alone. They've been arrested and locked down in solitary confinement for 23 hours. That's nothing different from communist China, than Cuba, than North Korea, than Russia. You know, I don't see any difference. What's the difference? That's basically the same thing. You know, it is shocking for the first time that you have political prisoners in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. used to be the center of freedom. You hear the loud cry of freedom. And every nation was held accountable whenever they mishandled their citizens. But right now, Washington, D.C. is the example of political prisoners. And yet, this administration shamelessly, hypocritically, are standing up to the Sudanese and say, hey, you guys are maltreating protesters. I wish I was the spokesperson for Sudan. I would have reminded them of what's happening in Capitol, what's happening in Washington, D.C., you know. But that was really funny. That was really funny. I remember and I just laughed, you know. And there are other news, again, the worry in the Middle East concerning Iran. And we're also going to look at that and see some updates. There's been lots of earthquakes around the world, terrifying and terrible. And there was a storm in Texas, and we've been praying for the people in Texas and hoping that everything is well. So don't go away. We will look at some of these stories, and we will look at them quite well, you know. Welcome back. I hope that you are fine, that life is treating you well, and that the challenges of every day, they are going to come, but then we trust God that He's going to grant us the victory. The Bible tells us that we are not alone. The Lord promised us in Psalms 91, verse 15, He said, I will be with you in trouble, I will deliver you, and I will honor you. You know, so we know that we are not alone, and our hope is in the Lord. We put our trust in God. And so whatever comes against us, we know that the Lord is going to fight for us. And I encourage you to put your trust in God and not give up. And don't give up. We are praying for you. And I believe someone somewhere is praying for you, someone you don't even know. And by the grace of God, He's going to come through for you, and you will have a reason to rejoice. So, but while you wait, you know, just keep your trust and eyes on God and don't be discouraged. And so we believe God for the best. So thank you anyway for making time to tune in today. I'll just go straight away to some of the latest news, and probably we will go back to yesterday's news on we'll still look at some of these stories back on Telegram concerning yesterday, I believe. Yeah, sure enough, we have some great updates. But first of all, let's look at the Ukraine and Russia war. What's going on? Quickly, you know, there has been in a short moment ago, an Arab terrorist killed 4 innocent Israelis in a vicious stabbing attack in Beersheba. Wow. And guess what the Palestinians in Gaza did? When they heard that a few Jewish women were murdered, what would they do? Of course, celebrate. They will be dancing. They will be dancing. That's good news to them. It's terrible. All right, so Again, on global impact, we don't. We try to be really objective concerning the war in Ukraine. The motive of the war, no doubt, is evil. The motive is evil. It is evil that sparked the war. However, we don't trust Putin and we don't trust Zelensky. We also don't trust the Europeans and we don't trust the U.S. administration in Canada. You know, the West versus Russia. We don't all trust them, their motives. All of them are corrupt politicians, and many of them are fighting this war with innocent people. Innocent soldiers are being sent to war. For a war they even don't have any idea what's going on. This war is a setup. This war is cooked up. It is a battle of the titans. And they say when we were young kids growing up in school, our headmaster used to say every day, when two elephants fight, it's only the grass that will suffer. It is the poor people, the innocent people in Ukraine and in Russia. And in fact, a lot of innocent soldiers, you know, on both sides are dying, you know, giving up their lives, fighting a battle that is unbelievably corrupt and evil. This is a terrible war. This is a war that should have been avoided by any means. Of course, the West did not do what they should do. If we look back at the history of Ukraine and Russia, you can go back to just a few decades ago to the end of the Cold War. When the war ended, and then there was a negotiation with USSR, and NATO, immediately after the fall of the USSR, the US was the major nuclear power, followed by Russia, and then followed by Ukraine. You wouldn't believe it. Ukraine was the third nuclear power in the world. In fact, Ukraine alone could add up all other countries who had nuclear power at that time. And so Ukraine was a leading force on earth, and Russia wasn't comfortable with that at their border. So they brought the issue up, and there was intense negotiation. And the West said, okay, in order to concede, in order for Ukraine to concede, they pledged to Ukraine on both sides. Russia and NATO pledged to Ukraine that Russia will never invade Ukraine. That's not all, but they also pledged that should in case Russia invades Ukraine, then Ukraine can count on the West. They can count on NATO and the US to fight Russia and defend them. Now, that's if you look at it that way alone, you will assume that so let them go to war against Russia, and defend Ukraine. But that's not just it. But there was also another part of the agreement, and that part of the agreement was that that NATO promised Russia that they will not expand even an inch further eastward. In other words, we're not going to advance, we're not going to add other countries by expanding the boundary, the geography of NATO. But you know what? They've gone against all that. They've been going round and round and round against all that, and they've been expanding, and now they are encroaching the border of Russia. That's a genuine threat to Russia. I don't care how you take it. You can't tell the Russians that, our motives are honest, we will not attack you. How do you know? How do you know the West will not? How do you know NATO will not attack Russia? So they have a justified reason for going to war. They have a justified reason. Unfortunately, it's not a justified reason to kill. Personally, I objected the war right from the start, and my concern was not even the politics surrounding it. My concern was the innocent that will die. I tell you, people are dying. There have been rumors around, misinformation around, false information that, there is no war really going on, that nobody is dying. It is just false, but it's not true, And I was checking, I have the Flight Radar 24, which is an application that can actually, in real time, check the entire global atmosphere and see all the planes, almost all the planes that are, most commercial private planes. You can see them right on air. You can see them on the phone. I can see it. But if you look at the airspace of Ukraine and Russia and Belarus, you can see that all those airspace are cleared, which means that it is a kind of a no-fly zone. Only military planes are flying around. Of course, you will see military planes on the radar, but all commercial and private planes, you can see it. And you can see how all they fly around it. They go around it, even take longer distances, of course. That's the only way in order to go to China, to go to UAE, to go to South Korea and other places. And so that is clear evidence. And I was telling people that, hey, a war is going on. They said, no, the fake news media is just, airing fake information. There is no war going on. I had one fellow argue with me on Facebook and almost swore that there is nothing happening there. Nothing, that he has cameras and he can see that nothing is happening in Ukraine. Everything is fine. And I told him, I said, I have people on ground. I know people in Ukraine. I know a pastor. Personally, I know the pastor. I know a friend who was there. I know different people. And I can tell you that there is a war going on. Of course there is a war. Of course there is a war. And I can tell you, if you tell you that there is a war going on and nobody is dying, that's a big lie. There's no way there will be war. And Russia will be blasting their best weapons on ground and nobody is dying. People are dying. Let's not deny it. You can argue about the motives of the war, the reasons for the war, but then you can't argue the fact that innocent people, civilians, women, children are dying. Innocent people, residential areas have been bombed, schools are bombed, shopping malls are bombed, offices, private hospitals are bombed, So this is really, really serious, So if you look at all that, you know that there's war going on, people are dying, and no matter our anger against politicians and what has been going in, of course, the biological labs, which is a confirmed issue, that there were biological labs for whatever. Everybody is mad about it. I'm mad about it. Yeah. And also the corruption that went on, the money laundering and child trafficking, all these things. Of course, it's happening in Ukraine, but it's not only happening in Ukraine, it's happening in many countries of the world. I don't think that that's enough reason to go after the country and to just destroy and kill lives. So, having said all that, now, so what's going on? What are the things that we need to take out of this? What are things we have to be concerned? My concern principally is the tone of the war now, because the war is not, like I said, it's a proxy war. It's a proxy war, and Russia is waiting for NATO to get involved. And NATO is waiting for Russia to touch any of their NATO allies, or by any means necessary, and they're trying to see how they can ship weapons to Ukraine. Now, so all of that, Russia has already made it clear that it is ready to use nuclear warheads in this war, which means that it will become a nuclear war. Now, there is no way I can overemphasize this subject. Of course, if Russia uses its nuclear weapons in Europe, the US will use their weapons, nuclear weapons. Europe will use, France and Germany will use theirs, and absolutely Britain will use it too. It becomes a nuclear war. And I tell you, I was just thinking today, And I felt like making a post to my friends on Facebook, and I couldn't get myself to make that post. If there is a nuclear war, how many of you are sure you will still be alive after it? How many of you can say that? During the Second World War, you remember what happened and what ended the war. What ended the war was, as the war went on and went on, in Europe and in Asia, as Europe was fighting Hitler, and with the US was fighting Japan, and you know what went on. At the end of the day, what ended the war was the striking of Nagasaki and Hiroshima with the atomic bombs. That was the devastating blow that ended that war. Japan surrendered. However, one of the interesting things, the first time I read the article, I can't remember, it was the 50th anniversary or something. I think it was the 50th anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. I read the article on Times Magazine. And the pilot who dropped the air bomb, after they dropped the bomb, and the pilot turned around and looked at the ball of nuclear, of atomic, the ball of fire that was rising and the smoke. And the first thing that came out of his mouth was, "Oh God, what have we done?" And I tell you exactly that's what will happen. If we ever push ourselves to come to a case of nuclear weapon, that's the only nuclear war. That's the only thing we'll be saying after the war. What have we done? It is better that we don't get to that place now. Anyway, the painful thing for me is that I don't see adults in the room. As Russia is pushing harder, the West is pushing harder. Europe is building up around the borders of Russia, and the United States is sending more troops. And the rhetoric from everybody, I have not seen anybody trying to calm both sides and say, "Come on, let's calm down, let's calm down." I saw the Israeli Prime Minister doing his best, but of course then it's not enough. I want to see. I don't even know where the United Nations is. I don't trust the United Nations. But of course, this is where they show best how useless they are. Nobody is calling both parties to de-escalate. Let's not go there. Let's not go to nuclear war. Let us not get there. Everybody calm down. Let's find a better way to solve this war. Keep it conventional, and let's find a way of sorting it out. Because I tell you, once the first nuclear hit is launched, the rest of it is going to be history. There are millions and millions and millions of people, in fact, possibly billions, that will be wiped out. There are enough nuclear weapons to wipe the whole human race out. Russia alone has 5,000 nuclear warheads. And we don't even need as many as that to destroy, to end the whole world. And the United States has more than Russia. Right? And China. And Europe. And North Korea. And India. Do you see where this is all going to head up in? It's a place where we shouldn't be going. So we need to be saying, calm down, de-escalate. And then the church, I don't even know where does the church exist. I thought that Christians should be out there calling out and crying out and say, "Come on, calm down, everybody, please turn it down, and turn it down." Everybody is watching. We are watching until a nuclear war starts. I was studying some, I think a year or two ago, I think it was 2 years ago, and I was going to have a show on, the diplomatic role of the church. And I began to study the different wars that has happened and what the church did when the war was happening, either as a build-up to the war or as the war was going. And I studied Nazi Germany, I studied Rwanda, I studied the war in Sierra Leone, and I studied the war in Liberia. And on every single occasion, I found out that the church was always following rather than leading. And the church has to speak out. I mean, when I say the church, I'm talking about true Christians. They have always left it to the Catholic Pope. And yet we turn around and say we don't believe the Catholic Pope is the representative of Jesus as we want it to be. If you don't want it, if you think he's not the representative of Jesus, then what are the representatives of Jesus doing? I think church, we need to step out boldly and come forward and learn and get to do something about what's going on. I think it is time for us to actually have a say, calm down the pressure, the temperature, and say, come on, everybody turn it down. We need to chill a bit and look at the step we're going to take. Because I tell you, if things keep going the way they are going, well, some of us, as in the case of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we may not be here again to tell the story of what happened. I tell you, the people in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, if they knew that they will be wiped out with atomic bombs, they would have urged the government, the emperor of Japan, to turn it down, to surrender, to end it. It would have been better for them. I'll be right back after this break. I'll be right back.
Thank you. Hey, I'm Ken McClinton, the host of the Exceptional Conservative Show, live for the nation's capital. I love this cat, the Exceptional Conservative Show cat, Jacob. We love you, and we want you to know we love the fact that you watch TECNTV.com. As chairman, founder, and president, we wish you much love and much affection. I love you. I love you.
Hey, this is Pastor Greg right here watching TECNTV.com live and enjoying. You should join me here on ChildrenGenerationRadio.com, and also my other favorite thing, ministering the gospel in India.
Hi, I'm Bob Record, and as you can see, I love hunting. And I also love watching TECNTV.com. Why don't you join me in doing that? But in the meantime, I'm headed back to the field. See you later.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Jones from Beyond the Lines. And when I'm not exploring Los Angeles, I am watching TECNTV.com. TECNTV.com. I love it.
I'm David McQuell. I'm the host of Global Impact on TECN. I'm a missionary in Abidjan, West Africa, working on establishing the largest history center. Whether I'm in the field or I'm working on history, I love TECN TV.
When I'm not making delicious cookies, I'm watching TECNTV.com.
Hi, I'm Randy. I love the golf.
And I love TECNTV.com.
All right, so welcome back to the show. David McQuell here with you tonight again for Global Impact. And all right, so updates from the Amir Tsarfati channel, news channel on Telegram. He reported that there was a massive earthquake in Taiwan, 6.4 magnitude of 6.4. Wow. That's really low. There was earthquake in in Iran, earthquake, different places just this past 7 days. Incredible. Okay. Again, so let me check this. And then the other story. I don't know if we could talk about that. Is it's the events happening in the Middle East. You can see that the Middle East key players that are traditionally American allies, which is Israel, Egypt, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, have all been abandoned by the Biden administration. And the Biden administration is bent on the suicidal mission, submitting, bowing its knees and its neck to the Iranian mullahs. They are bent on making a deal with Iran at all costs, giving up as anything as they can. In fact, Russia is even going to get a $10 billion contract to build nuclear reactors in Iran. And not only that, the Iranians just created a special command, nuclear command. Wow. They just created a nuclear command center. Now, you don't do that for civilian nuclear activities. You only do that for military activities. People have been arguing when the US and Israel say Iran is developing nuclear weapons, and people say no. I think anybody who says no is just either ignorant or childish. But the Iranians are building nuclear weapons. Absolutely. They are willing to risk everything. They make an enemy of everybody around them and even around the world. And make no mistake, you think the Iranians trust the Russians? They don't. They are just friends of convenience. The enemy of your enemy is my friend. But the Iranians don't trust anybody. They want to become a superpower. So they are pursuing this nuclear weapon of a thing with everything. Now they have created a nuclear command center. The only way you can say that is military. It's a military command, which means that they are preparing that in anticipation of, finally getting to make nuclear weapons. Absolutely, it's clear. However, what is Biden doing? He's bent on giving them anything they want, making every kind of concession without the Iranians making any significant concession whatsoever. And I tell you that that deal is horrible. That's why you see, it's not just about Israel. Why don't you ask Egypt? Why don't you ask the UAE? Why don't you ask Saudi Arabia? Why don't you ask Iraq? Why don't you ask all the countries around? The countries that Iran has been threatening. Ask them about it and see if they are comfortable with it. It's not just Israel. In fact, many Arab countries are becoming friends with Israel because they see Israel is the only country that has the capacity to stop Iran. And if Iran gets nuclear weapons, they will threaten every country there. They don't have conscience. They don't care. They don't care. And so, it's terrible. It's not just terrible, but it's true that they are working towards having nuclear weapons. They are almost there. Okay? Safati reported that the Iranians claimed last week that they uncovered an Israeli plot to sabotage the Fordo nuclear site. And according to the Iranian state media, the alleged Fordo plot has been foiled by the newly established IRGC nuclear command. See, of course, and Israel has vowed that Iran will never, ever get a nuclear weapon. That's the reason why many people, including myself, believe that there is going to be a war between Israel and Iran. It's coming. I don't know how it's going to be avoided. And if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, they are ready to go to war with Israel. They don't care if they die. They don't care. And so, and definitely, and of course, not only Israel, They can bomb Saudi Arabia. They can bomb anywhere. They wouldn't mind that Iran will become the capital of Islam. They wouldn't mind that. So they have no respect for any other person. And so absolutely you can count on that there is going to be a war. But Israel is bent on that. And they have been effective in slowing them down. It was very much effective when President Trump was in power. But now with Biden, who is dancing and carrying water for Iran, absolutely, Israel has realized that, and even the Arab countries have realized that they cannot count on America anymore. There's no leadership in Washington. So they go around, and just a few days ago, I believe, yesterday or 2 days ago, the Egyptian president hosted a trial meeting between Israel and the UAE. Yeah. The Egyptian president Al-Sisi held, that's yesterday, I believe, a trilateral summit in Sharm el-Sheikh with the Prime Minister of Israel, Bennett, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Mohammed bin Zayed, and held that meeting. The reason was not, they were not talking about Russia and Ukraine, they were talking about Iran. What are they going to do? How are they going to cooperate together and stop this evil? And they are working hard together to get that done. They are working hard, and we pray that God will grant them wisdom so that there will be peace. Otherwise, I tell you, like I said again, and I say again, that you don't know if you'll be alive to tell the story of what happened. You have no idea. I mean, even in conventional war, you have no idea. You just look at the images from Ukraine and see what's going on, and you will understand what's going on. I mean, if in a conventional war, you know, cruise missiles and bombs and what do you call it? And all kinds of weapons that are used are totally making Ukraine a desolate place. I mean, you cannot imagine what nuclear weapons will do. I tell you. We will all be saying sorry, how we wished. I mean, that's if we survive. If we survive it, you know. But we as Christians, of course, we are not afraid. We are not afraid because our hope is in God. It's not as if there is a nuclear war, we may not die, we may die. But then again, we have our trust in the Lord. And we know the Lord told us that even if we die today, we're going to be with him. So that's the reason why we are not afraid. But we want peace, and we wouldn't want to die that way. We believe that we have a purpose on earth, and that the world will end when God wants it to end, not by nuclear weapons. So, however, we have to uphold the world in prayer. We need to pray like we've never prayed before. We need to talk like we've never talked before. And we need our religious leaders to speak out, you know, and to speak out like they've never done before. We have to call the voice of reason. We have to call on the voice of reason and bring this plague to an end, and bring this terrible, terrible thing that is happening to an end. I'll be right back after this break.
What happened to the church? To the living, powerful, transformative, nation-shaking Christianity?
What they're trying to do is completely demolish Western civilization and then to rebuild it in a just society.
How do you break down American Christianity?
I think the problem today in our culture is many of our words have been co-opted and stolen and dumbed down and reversed.
Social justice is sold as something that it isn't. Critical race theory is sold as something that it isn't.
Whiteness has caused blindness of heart. Whiteness has caused blindness of heart.
When you preach victimization, it always leads to vengeance and vice. Us against them, me against you, I want my pound of flesh.
American churches today are where the universities were 10 years ago. Pretty heavily Marxist. They're not quite there yet, but they're well on the way. Many of the seminaries and Bible colleges are definitely already there.
That message that they're going out and taking the world is not, you need to repent of your sin, receive Christ. Instead, the message that you actually have is they are under the weight of racism or sexism or homophobia, and then we need to unify them together.
I'm gay, I'm 29, I'm a youth pastor in New Jersey.
I'm straight, and I'm also a youth pastor in New Jersey.
We're planning on sharing life together for the rest of our lives, which we're not totally sure what that looks like. Obviously, Nick is straight, and he does plan on getting married. When he has a wife one day, she'll make those decisions with us.
The future damage of what we're doing now is just going to be enormous.
The entire fabric of family, personal wealth, private property, all those things are out the door. And everything is the state. They believe the state is God.
They don't define justice the same way as the scriptures.
Oh, no. It's going to be an equality, all right. And it's going to be a totalitarian Marxist justice.
Everything that's reported on television isn't always true, but it should be. NTD, the power of truth. Now available 24/7 on television and streaming platforms.
David McQuell on
Global
Impact at TC. Oh my word! On Global Impact at TCN with David McQuell on Global Impact TEC ECNTV.com.
Yeah.
And with David McQuell on Global Impact at TECNTV.com.
TECNTV.com.
All right, welcome back to the show. I'm developing stories from the war in Ukraine, and I'd like us to look at these. First of all, this was yesterday. A senior NATO official warns Belarus is preparing the environment to justify a Belarusian offensive against Ukraine, the imminent deployment of Russian nuclear weapons in Belarus. Wow. So Belarus is joining Russia. Of course, they've expressed their support for Russia, and I think the Czech Republic, one of the republics, have also, Yugoslavia, Serbia, I think Serbia has expressed its support for Russia. However, it has been just mouth support. But here we are seeing Belarus going all out of the way and even probably justifying the reason why Russia can attack Ukraine from Belarus. But not only that, Russia warns Poland in lengthy letter days before Joe Biden's visit that Poland is bracing for a possible Russian invasion. So Russia is also threatening that after Ukraine, they're going to invade Poland. So my friends who have argued that no, Russia, Russia is just in Ukraine to, clear out the Nazis, and then he will go back. Initially, they said, oh, it was just to liberate the two Russian regions, Donbass and Linsk. Well, so after that, they don't think that Russia will not invade Ukraine. And then they began to Ukraine. They say, well, okay, there are biolabs there. They are going to destroy it, and they are going to clear the Nazis, and then they will leave Ukraine. They will not touch anybody. They will protect civilians. Well, we have seen all that fall apart. Now we're going to see what is it about this warning Poland that they will be invaded. What's it about? I mean, are there Nazis in Poland? What is it? Or is it true that Russia, Putin, is looking forward to rebuilding the Soviet Union? That's really a very, very important question. So Poland, Amir said, Poland announces tonight That's yesterday, the start of military preparation for the possibility of Russian invasion on its territory. Oh dear Lord. Germany and the Netherlands sent a Patriot air defense system to be deployed at the airport in central Slovakia. And Russia threatens to attack Patriot air defense systems being sent to Slovakia. Man, this thing is spreading fast. This thing, people need to chill. People need to come to their senses. This is not going to end. It never ends well. Never ends well. Like I said, I don't trust Putin. I don't trust Zelensky. The emphasis has been put on Zelensky only. I don't trust him, yeah. But I don't trust Putin. Neither do I trust our own leaders. I don't trust them. Most leaders on earth are just corrupt. And they don't care about people. Their own children don't go to war. Their own children don't go to war. So it's absolutely important, you know, at this day that we understand and draw back from this thing. We need to pull back. We need to slow it down. We need the voices of reason to begin to rise. Right? Oh my God. That's really serious. That's really serious. You know, it's absolutely important. You know, it's absolutely important. It's absolutely important that we take that. Now, so you see, if this war escalates, what will happen is that many countries will have to take sides. Many countries will have to take sides. You know how African countries went to fight in the World War? They had to join Britain to go and fight in the Second World War on behalf of Britain. Many of them died. Many French African countries from Mali, from Tunisia, from Algeria, from Cote d'Ivoire, from Senegal, Cameroon, Gabon, all went up to fight for France. Of course, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Kenya, of course, Ghana, all of them had to send in soldiers to fight on behalf of the UK. If there is a nuclear war and you think that we will all be watching and quiet, it may come to that. It may come to that, and absolutely important. And I tell you, we need to really wake up and smell the coffee. It is time to scale it down. The Bible calls us, he says that we are the agents of peace. We Christians, we believers, you know, we are the ones to bring peace, reconcile nations. And I think this is the right time now. Somebody say, well, yeah, we know we are praying. Oh, yes, prayer is good. Prayer is absolutely necessary. But we need to go beyond prayer. We need to talk. We need to counsel. We need to advise. We need to even warn in many cases. We need to talk. And all the Christian brothers and sisters in places of authority, all the Christian brothers and sisters in office, all the Christian brothers and sisters who are in the military, wherever you are, judges and great leaders, it is time for you to begin to talk. Don't just sit down and say, well, that's their problem in Europe. I remember a few years ago back in Nigeria, and we used to look at all the terrorism in Israel, where the Palestinians were blowing up themselves to kill Israelis, and, you know, the same thing that happened in the West, also in Europe and in Afghanistan and in Syria and Iraq. And I told them, and I said to them, listen, this thing is horrible. One day it might come here. They say, oh no, I mean, we Africans, we have common sense. There's no African who will wear explosives and kill himself in order to kill people. We love life. We don't want to die. And nobody's going to do that. Well, you see? You've seen Boko Haram, El Shabaab, right? You've seen in Mali. You've seen in Mozambique, in Egypt, in Tunisia. You used to think this was far away. But it's happening in Africa. It's happening in Africa. People are blowing themselves up. You had no idea that Boko Haram will kidnap 300 students and keep some of them as sex slaves and send some out as suicide bombers. You had no idea. They don't even have to do it themselves. They can terrorize someone to do it. They can terrorize someone to do it. So it's absolutely important for us to understand that this thing is not as far as you think it is. You don't think that it's very far. It's not going to happen here. It may not happen here. And before it happened here, it will not happen here. If you just look at what happened with COVID, how all the nations of the earth were shut down, it gives you an idea that no matter where you are on earth, evil can meet you there. Absolutely important. So it's really, really important for us to understand that and actually do something about it. We got to do something. We got to warn ourselves. We got to warn other people. And I'll be right back after this break. Dreams are potential seeds. They need someone to believe in them. They need someone to finance them. And they need someone to embrace them. Partner today with the World Mission Center, Abidjan, the Ivory Coast, and help us win Africa for Christ.
Everything that's reported on television isn't always true, but it should be. NTD, the power of truth. Now available 24/7 on television and streaming platforms.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Thank you so very much for tuning in. We're slowly coming to the end of the show for tonight. I have a little bit of good news for those of us that love Israel and look forward to the great prophecies that are coming forth. I saw a very good, important news here yesterday that the Singapore, the island country of Singapore has surprisingly decided to build its embassy to Israel in Jerusalem. Move their embassy. Let me see it exactly. Singapore to open an embassy in Israel for the first time. Okay, Singapore to open an embassy, To open an embassy, let me be very clear. Singapore, since 1965, has stayed neutral, but they have decided for the first time ever to build an embassy, to establish their embassy, to open their embassy in Israel since 1975. That's incredible, great news. That tells you a lot more and more how people are really looking up to Israel for leadership, especially in the absence of leadership in the White House. It's incredible. So thank you so very much today. We really, 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 really love you. We appreciate you. We enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed it. It's great. Tomorrow we'll be here with more updates on different subjects. Today we couldn't go to NTD, but we will tomorrow. We will look at NTD. Really great, great source of news. So thank you so very much. I'll be going off here. Global Impact is going off, but TECN TV programs continue. Great, great shows. Beautiful, wonderful, amazing shows. I hope that you will watch them and enjoy what we offer. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you.